Peachy Manitou. We call upon him. This is a journey that only he can do and lead. And he is doing it. Will we follow? Will you be free? Let the dancers be released tonight. Justice of your hand. In righteousness you rule, justice your foundation. Your kingdom comes to this land. Oh, gotta love that beat. Yeah, that was recorded live May 6th from the Eagle's Nest of Canada 2010 during the Journey of Freedom. Right around the time that I wrote the song Forgiven and Free, actually. And, well, you guys, and part of the reason I put our music on there is YouTube copyright. They keep blocking our programs. Welcome to another edition of Eagle Eye with Prophetic Perspectives with Art Lucy and friends. And today I have a friend. I have a friend on board who's coming on in just a moment. I've got a couple interesting weeks of Eagle Eye, part 1 and part 2, talking about politics, talking about our duty as believers in Canada to vote, who to vote for. Now, I want to clear something up for Canada here, because you've heard me say on the Reset with Doug Sharp and some others, and for a while now, you know, to vote for Leslyn Lewis, the only pro-life candidate in the conservative leadership race. My thoughts on that have not changed. If there's any hope for a pro-life candidate, looking for the blessings of the Lord as we Stand for Life, it would be Leslyn Lewis. All 5 other candidates have said they are indeed pro-choice. This is a very sad, to me, it's a sad season, sad day that we are here in Canada, with conservatives 5 out of 6 being pro-choice openly. 3 years ago, as some of you will remember, right during this month, we were all together in Edmonton for Battle for Canada. That is where, on May 14th, we had the incredible opportunity to show the movie Unplanned in Canada for the first time. Well, I think it had been shown on a small scale in Ottawa. We went a little bit bigger than a room full. We had 2,800 people who showed up for a movie that supposedly no one wanted to see. At that time, I felt the Lord prophetically speak to us, saying, those who stand for life will be protected as God's people were in Goshen. Now, if you remember, Goshen was a town where all the Israelite slaves lived during their time in Egypt for 400 years. But when the harsh plagues began to fall on Egypt, they were protected. God's children were protected in Goshen while the plagues fell on the Egyptians. I believe personally that those who stand for life will be under a greater protection from the Lord. That's my conviction. That's what I believe. And I believe that it's time for the Canadian church, 50 years plus after the legalization of abortion, that the Canadian church stands up, finds their voice, that we stand for life. So, Eagle Eye Prophetic Perspectives is used. This program is used on the Canadian Firewall, which, by the way, thank you for all of you who've been standing for 100 weeks now. We are in our 100th week of 24/7 prayer. This program is designed to give prayer points and a bit of a prophetic perspective of what to pray for. I've been on the reset recently saying we must get our membership in. This is not for Prime Minister. The federal election probably doesn't happen for till 2025. But seeing as how Aaron O'Toole was removed as the leader of the party, there's a leadership race happening, and we've got about a week to get our CPC membership. I think it's $15. Faytene's going to come on here in just a moment. She's our guest to tell us this. But it was our conviction to vote for Leslyn, to bring her in. A year ago, I did cut up my card in a very strong sense of frustration. My donor card didn't mean that I was actually no longer a CPC member. I didn't phone that in and cancel that. But at that time, I told Canada emphatically, Aaron O'Toole is pro-choice. He's pro many ungodly things. And I was going to help that man loose. Well, that was my conviction. That's what I did. And I also gave a prediction, a prophetic word that Aaron O'Toole would be removed. He wouldn't gracefully step down, which came to pass, and that Justin Trudeau would win a minority, which came to pass. What am I seeing for the future? Well, let's bring on Faytene, our friend right now, a passionate, passionate woman of God for many things, especially for life. She has an incredible wall of her own called the Life Wall. Maybe she'll talk quickly a little bit about that. Faytene,
hey,
you and I have been putting on some miles. I'm just about to head out again this coming Tuesday and drive to the border of Saskatchewan once again, light it up for Battle for Canada, our 5th and final installment. You're out and about. Where are you today, actually?
oh man, we just did a meeting last night in Langley, which was amazing. It was kind of a last minute one, but the room was 80% full. I was so grateful. Hop in a plane here like in 2 hours or 3 hours to go into Victoria. So I'm going to be doing a meeting tonight in Victoria on the island. And tomorrow there's a big rally at the Ledge, the Legislative Assembly there in BC. Brian Peckford's going to be there, a bunch of doctors. Roman Baber, I think, is going to be there. And so they've implicated me in that one. And then we're going to be in Regina Sunday night. So we're going to be, I don't know when you're there, but we're there Sunday night. And then we're heading into Montreal because this is actually this could be the kingmaker position is actually the province of Quebec, though there are some other very strategic areas of the nation as well. Pretty much all the urban cities are really key in terms of what we're about to talk about. But Quebec far surpasses them all. In Quebec right now, there are about 60 ridings that are what mathematically would be considered the kingmaker ridings, or the super ridings that could influence the outcome of this race that we're in right now. Lots to talk about.
There is. And of course, when me and you get talking, it can go by really fast. So I want to be conscious of your time. So you talk about kingmaker ridings. Kingmaker ridings as far as putting in the next leader of the CPC. Why don't you just explain that for us, for those who may not be so aware? Because remember, Faytene, it's been in different circles of the Church of Canada saying you don't even need to vote. This is, tell us your thoughts on that viewpoint of the church. I need a thought on that, because we have people here, we're praying into stuff. Give us a thought on that and talk about your kingmaker ridings.
Yeah, sure. And are you okay if I kind of dig down deep in terms of just what we're hearing from the Spirit in terms on this stuff, since this is a prophetic perspectives? I'd love to go there because I haven't really gone there a lot over the last little bit, but so appreciate all your viewers. I wanted to say that, and everybody who's been so faithful on the Canadian Firewall for the last couple of years. We've got the life room up to 24/7 now, so that is absolutely amazing. I believe that that's one of the lead dominoes of seeing things really shift in our nation is that 24/7 prayer, specifically for the issue of life. That's something that the Lord put in my heart back in 2007. So it's amazing that we just capped that off right in the midst of this big thrust as well. So I'm in day 30 right now of this national tour on the road, but we've been putting this word out since the beginning of April. So I think probably most of your viewers have connected in some way, shape, or form. But the cops showed up at my door. Some people know this story. The cops showed up at my door in October, gave us a notice of forced quarantine. We were not COVID positive. We had no symptoms or anything like that. But because we had allegedly been exposed to someone that was COVID positive 12 days prior, me, Rob, and the kids were put into house arrest, basically, no questions asked. We couldn't confirm or deny. And I remember thinking, Art, like, man, like, what if somebody just didn't like what I talked about on my TV show, or, or didn't like something that I posted, and they're just like, they go get themselves COVID positive and put me on the I hugged her list or something. It was a bit of a rattling experience for us because of how intense the controls were loosed upon our family. They patrolled us that week with police cruisers the entire week. They were going up and down our street, and we live on a dead end street in the middle of rural, sleepy, retiree area of New Brunswick on the outskirts of St. John. And so that put Rob and I into like a real regroup because we're parents, right? We've got a 6 and an 8-year-old. And I remember I reached out to you at that time, Art, and I shared kind of what we had just gone through and said, what is the Lord saying here? And I remember you giving us a word at that time to that if we felt a need to remove ourselves from the nation for the sake of our own personal security, that we should do it, and we should do it swiftly. And so we actually did get a confirmation about that from Cindy Jacobs, Patricia King, Sharon Stone. Several prophets actually gave Rob and myself as a family and our family a prophetic warning. And so I ended up being in the States for 4 months, from December to about March. And while we were there, obviously the truckers convoy hit, and we ended up being able to cover that quite closely because I was able to do it from a distance without, any sort of threat of cops showing up at our door again. questioning us or what like we just didn't know how it was going to roll out. We just knew that we had several prophetic warnings that we needed to get out of the line of fire. So I was watching this from a distance, like what's happening in Canada. Obviously, we have given our hearts to the nation of Canada for 2 decades now. And so that was not a late thing for us to kind of go into exile for 4 months. But while I was there, watching what was happening, then when Aaron O'Toole was ejected out of the leadership of the Conservative Party, really for multiple reasons. Some people might not know this, and I haven't caught all your streams, Art, so I don't know if you've already talked about this, but there were a few reasons why he was so swiftly ejected. Number one is there was a massive growing discontent within the Conservative Party regarding his lack of willingness to let his caucus speak, particularly on the vaccine mandates issue. And, Dr. Leslyn Lewis, who you already mentioned in this broadcast, she tweeted out about parents needing to have the right to decide for themselves and their families whether or not their children would get a vaccine. And she put out this tweet about, never in human history or Canadian history have children been used as shields, medical shields for adults. And she got a phone call from the powers that be at that time and was told to pull the tweet because they didn't want it to create controversy for the Conservative Party. And I'm so proud of her. She stood up at that moment and she said, listen, these parents are asking me to speak about this. And these parents are the ones who elected me, not the opposition leader's office. And so she kept the tweet up. And because of that, lost a shadow cabinet position. But this was just one of many incidents of MPs that were wanting to speak up and were being muffled and muzzled quite intensely. And then the whole thing with the bill in December that was actually tabled by Aaron O'Toole, through Rob Moore, which is ironically my member of parliament. And this, of course, is the piece of legislation that could put you in prison for up to 5 years for praying the wrong thing with the wrong person at the wrong time. And so that was, as we know, it was passed through the House of Commons without study, without debate, rushed through to the Senate, and then the Senate did the same. And so when that happened in December, and that combined with just the intense controls over some of the members of the Conservative Party caucus, they were ready, right? When the truckers hit Ottawa, the caucus was absolutely ready for change. And I remember watching this dynamic, observing this dynamic. And when Aaron O'Toole was ejected from the leadership of the caucus, I took a step back, Art. I was in Texas at the time, and I took a step back and I just said, Lord, like, what are you saying? Like, we've given 20 years to Canada. Are we done? Like, is it over? like what's going on? Because clearly we're going into another potential opportunity here. And I need to know how much you want me to give into this moment. And so I remember praying and saying, Lord, do you want me to take the cry all across Canada and, do solemn assemblies in every province? Do you want me just to continue doing TV shows or do more like what we did with the truckers convoy? Or do you want me just to close the shutters and hug my babies and figure out how to garden and, build a house in the bush? It's like, these were honest questions that I had, Art. And in that moment, the Holy Spirit spoke to me. And he said, I want you to remember how you were impacted when you saw the video that Scott Hayward had put out about how 2 or 3 volunteers literally shifted swing ridings. This was in the 2015 federal election, I think those videos were about. And I remembered, Art, in 2019, you'll remember this, when the Lord gave us that word. And this is important. I think this is important for your viewers. In 2019, the Lord gave us a word and he said, this is the last chance to easily shift the power center of the Parliament of Canada. And you remember for 8 months, we were just blowing the trumpet, trying to get people engaged in the swing ridings. And I felt prophetically at that time that if we didn't shift the swing ridings, that we would have a very not great outcome in the Parliament. and that outcome would lead to the passing of legislation that would put pastors in prison and possibly lead to the criminalization of parts of the Bible. Emma Stark got the same word right around the same time. So we'd put it out, and very minimal response, to be honest. You responded, you put your shoulder behind it at that time, Art, but very minimal across the board. And we ended up losing in that election by somewhere between 350 and 450 volunteers. If we would have just seen 350 to 450 volunteers in those ridings, we would have seen a shift. And so, okay, I'm going to try to bottom line this because I'm monologuing too much here. But so the prophetic intensity that I felt in 2019, and that came to pass, right? Like we didn't shift it by a small margin. And that prophetic word came to pass. We now have the legislation that criminalizes a part of the Bible and could put pastors, parents, possibly, we don't know how this is going to be interpreted in the courts, in prison for up to 5 years. The same prophetic intensity came upon me in February, Marchish. And I felt the Lord say, I want you to study what happened in the last two major party leadership races, so the Liberal and the Conservative in 2020. I want you to study what happened in 2021, because to be honest, by the time we hit 2021, I was like, I wasn't really watching as closely as I was in 2019 because of the trajectory that we were already on. But I obeyed that little nudge, Art, and I started doing the research and was literally riveted. I think that would be the only word, was riveted by what I discovered. And what I discovered is what I put together in this presentation. And that's that 0.2% of Canadians, by taking a specific action in 2013, determined that Justin Trudeau's name would be the one on the ballot going head to head with Stephen Harper in 2015. And the same number in 2020, that 0.2% of Canadians basically voted for Aaron O'Toole to pop him over the top. In 2020, 90,000 Canadians voted for Aaron O'Toole to put him in that leadership position. 174,000 Canadians voted. 80,000 Canadians had the ability to vote but didn't vote, so just kind of got raptured that weekend. I don't know what happened. But 0.2% in both situations, determining that Justin Trudeau and Aaron O'Toole would be the names on the ballot. And also, I also found out that Leslyn Lewis, if she would have only had 57 more votes in 149 ridings, she would have easily have beaten Aaron O'Toole, and we would have had a very, very different dynamic in the House of Commons, particularly over the last 6 months. So these are not small things. They're small numbers, but the consequences are massive. And so I'll let you interject here, but I believe that we are at a hinge moment once again. This might be our last chance. I don't know for sure. But I believe we're at a hinge moment once again, where if just a few people will set aside their offendedness with the political system, with the Conservative Party, and for the sake of their children, for the sake of their freedoms, for the sake of the church in Canada, bring their influence into this vote, it is possible that we could see a turn. I don't have a promise on that, but there is a possibility here.
Right. And so obviously we don't have time here on this program to go through your whole Engage presentation, which you're doing around Canada, which is very good. I've seen it. I've watched it. I've talked to you about it. But maybe you can even throw it in the chat there, or we can throw it in there after. Anyway, the long and the short of it is this. We need to get our CPC membership. Now, you did mention something, a lot of offendedness, it's well-founded.
Yeah, I get it.
What's been happening, what has happened with the Conservative Party. I'm not going to go too far into that per se. I might talk a little bit more next week with Grant Abraham on that, part 2 of this whole thing. But there's a chance, and it's simply by believers. If you've got your CPC membership, or if you don't, you've got a few days to vote for Leslyn Lewis. Now, I will say a couple more things. Our ministry loves is not scared of this. You mentioned Scott Hayward. If you remember, we brought Scott Hayward and Right Now and gave them a whole session at Battle for Canada, St. John, at the founding city of the nation, the home of Sir Leonard Tilley. This is something we're passionate about, something we believe in. Scott Hayward just was in our church 2 days ago, did a presentation. Okay, but it's Scott Hayward just put out an email though this morning saying of the six candidates for the leadership of the Conservative, only one is pro-life. It's a no-brainer of who we're voting for. If you're going to vote for life, this cannot be Canada. This cannot be about, well, as long as someone knows finances, I can have a job. We need the blessings of the Lord. Otherwise, there's no job. Do we understand this? So with that, Faytene, that's my language. Let's go back to your language on it, Faytene.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't answer your question about the Kingmaker riding. So the other thing I discovered in my research, which I had never seen before, you're brilliant with math, Art, so you probably caught this ages ago, but is that the Conservative leadership race, and I believe the Liberal leadership race, is actually run by a point system. So it's not necessarily the person who gets the most votes that will win the leadership, but it's the person who actually wins the most ridings. And so, for example, in 2020, Dr. Leslyn Lewis actually got the most votes on the third ballot when she dropped off, or the second ballot when she dropped off. She actually had more votes than both Peter MacKay and Erin O'Toole. But she had not won enough of the ridings. And so how this works is that each riding gets 100 points, no matter how many people vote in that riding. So there in Kelowna, your riding gets 100 points. I'm told that Pierre Poilievre had a rally there not so long ago with something like 5,000 people that arrived. And so if all 5,000 of those people actually signed up to vote, then each one of those people would have a value of 1 against 5,000 for their vote in the final ratio towards. So for example, if 2,500 of those 5,000 people vote for Leslyn Lewis gets 50 points from Kelowna. And same with Pierre Poilievre, or however that shakes down. I'm trying to simplify this just for mathematically. But now let's transpose that against a riding. Let's say, for example, Papineau. I found this out. Fun facts. Justin Trudeau's riding in Quebec of Papineau has less than 50 members in the Conservative Party. So if there is one church or one family in Papineau, Quebec, that's like, wow, this matters. And that family signs up all their friends, gets the people around them involved. And let's say 100 people sign up because of the influence of that church or that family. Then those people can literally, for 100 points, can get, say, or for 100 votes, let's say in a riding where 100 people vote, 75 in Papineau, Quebec vote for Leslyn Lewis. Well, she'll get 75 points for only 75 votes. So ironically, it's the ridings usually where there's the least amount of political engagement in the Conservative Party. And it's usually the ridings that are the least conservative that end up determining who the actual leader of the Conservative Party is. And I've been shocked. There's some ridings that you would think, because they're in conservative land, are like have tons of people that have memberships for the Conservative Party. Not so. I did some research. There's one riding in Calgary that at last count only had about 200 active members in the Conservative Party there. There's 3 ridings in Regina. That's why I'm going in on Sunday night, that have less than 500 people in those ridings. There's lots of tons, like probably 15 in the GVRD, the Greater Vancouver area, that have less than 750 people that are registered to vote. So the good news about this is that it's incredibly low hanging fruit. So if you're watching this right now, like, every riding matters, every vote matters, and every vote that's cast is going to shift the needle of the percentage value of points that the person that you want to get in will get. So every riding matters, Kelowna matters, but 5,000 votes in Kelowna might have the same political weight as 100 votes in the typical riding in Quebec. And so, what that means is if you know anybody in Quebec, you know anybody in Toronto, you know anybody in Edmonton, there's actually 5 ridings in Edmonton that are low membership ridings. Calgary, any of the urban centers, any of the red or orange areas of the nation. These are the areas where if people get involved, if people hear this message, they can actually have a massive, massive impact on who the future leader of the Conservative Party of Canada is, and possibly who the next prime minister is. And I'll go on record saying this prophetically, Art. I believe that whoever the next prime minister is, I believe that will determine our national sovereignty and our domestic security. We see some of the things that are happening this week at the World Economic Forum, where they're platforming technologies to literally monitor the lives of every human on planet Earth and measure it up against their carbon footprint. So if you drive a truck that gobbles up too much gas, you will be monitored possibly. And these types of technologies are being rolled out right now. And unfortunately, we have a prime minister right now that is completely complicit with this ideology, that he's okay with canceling Canadians, churches, single moms in Chilliwack who donate to a trucker before that trucker ever did anything controversial in the eyes of the nation. When we have leaders that have a control ideology, it really puts us in a vulnerable position. And so I believe that that's what's at stake with this election. I'd be curious to see what Grant Abrams is going to say on that, because I know that that's something that he really tracks closely on.
Yes,
but we need somebody, we need somebody at the leadership of the Conservative Party that's going to stand up for Canadians and be a disruptor to some of these ideologies, and defend your right to drive your truck, Art, and to eat as much beef as you want to, and for Heather to do as many loads of laundry as she wants to, because all of these things now have an official trackable carbon footprint measurement.
So something I want Canada to understand: you do not need to be a member when it comes to time to vote for the next prime minister. You don't need to be a member of the Conservative Party. You don't, when it comes who's a Liberal, Conservative, NDP, you do not need to be a member to vote for an election like that. You need to be a member, though, to vote who is going to be the next leader of the Conservative Party. You can't, there's not going to be any schools open on vote day. There's no vote day coming in the next week. You're simply running out of time to be a Conservative Party member to vote for the one person who is pro-life. And
you bring up a good point, because there is a lot of confusion around this right now. We're getting tons of emails every day. The deadline to sign up to vote is June the 3rd. The ballots will most likely be mailed out probably in July. The actual vote isn't until September. So you're going to receive your ballot by mail. We're going to be putting out a voter's guide as well, breaking down. One of the things that I'm going to be actually evaluating the candidates on as well, Art, is their track record on what they said in campaigns versus what they've done in the House of Commons or in their respective spheres where they've had an opportunity to vote. But the other thing is their political mentors and their campaign managers, because in this particular situation, it's actually a very easy read by just looking at the campaign teams. You can often tell who a person really is by who they go for dinner out for dinner with after the meeting, right? And so in this case, it's a really easy read of who Pierre is, who Leslyn is, who Sheree is. And so we'll be breaking that down as well. So when people sign up to vote or sign up to become members, they can do that through our website at formycanada.ca or .com. There's a big button there that says get membership. As long as you have your membership active by June the 3rd, you'll be on the roster to get your ballot. It's probably some point in July. We will send out our voter's guide by the end of June, most likely. And then my understanding will be is that you just have to have your ballot back by early September. It will actually be voted, or actually be counted, on September the 10th. And we'll know on 911 who the leader is. So that's the timeline. So don't freak out if you don't get your ballot by June the 3rd, because you won't get your ballot by June the 3rd. You just have to have your membership by June the 3rd active.
I also want to say on this program here, as a prophetic voice to this nation, as a minister, as someone who's been told by God to make straight the way of the Lord, you cannot, as a believer, with all good conscience, vote for a leader that is openly pro-death of an unborn child of the womb. You mentioned Pierre. You have to look at their track record. Pierre actually voted against the gender side bill, which would protect baby girls in the womb. Okay, so we have the situation like, oh, well, someone was raped and they don't want their baby. Yeah. So that 1% or 2% of society, the other 98%, and if someone walks into the doctor, oh, congratulations, you're having a baby girl. I am? I don't want it. And so they're killing their babies based on the gender. Someone brought forward a bill. The Conservatives voted for or against. Pierre was one of the many who voted against gender side. And he came out just recently, right out of the gate. I am pro-choice. They all are, except Leslin. I'm telling you, I'm going to say this too. God is watching. God is watching what you do and what you don't do. Just to let you know. So.
No pressure. And just to clarify, he actually voted in favor of gender side. He voted against C-233, which would limit gender side. So it's kind of a...
Yeah, he voted against the bill. Yeah,
he voted against the bill and therefore in favor of gender side, which, the other thing about this, and this would be my question for Pierre if I have an opportunity to ask it, is what I find a bit, or definitely concerning about that whole move, is that the Conservative base had actually voted at a policy convention that the Conservative Party of Canada would support any legislation that would limit gender side. And so the base had already said, yeah, we're in favor of this type of legislation. And secondly, at the time that this bill was coming forward, there were a bunch of polls that were done, and polls were coming in at as high as 94% of Canadians were saying that they were in favor of this type of legislation. And so when you have a leader that's saying, I'm here to give Canada back to you, I'm here to take away the big bossy government and give you back your life. And yet at a critical moment in a conscience vote, that leader doesn't reflect the base. And not only doesn't reflect the base, but doesn't reflect the nation. And you might say, and because I have probed a little bit with the powers that be on this one, and I understand. I haven't heard this from Pierre directly, so please take this with a grain of salt. But I understand the reason he voted against that bill was because he didn't feel like you can that you can monitor this, that you can really. He didn't feel it would be an effective bill. My response to that would be that actually isn't the point. The point is that the Conservative members said that they would want our leaders to support this bill, and Canadians were also in favor. So it concerns me when there's a paternalistic approach towards the electorate, where someone has the mindset of like, well, I know better. And so I'm not going to go with what the base says. I'm not going to go with what the polling is saying. Not that on this particular issue, it was actually low hanging fruit because this was a very highly, so the only reason most likely that he voted against this, other than that, maybe he felt it was flawed legislation, was that, he just didn't want to be pegged as being pro-life. And so we know that he's come out, and said unequivocally that he is pro-choice. So that would be an accurate, I think, statement and assessment most likely. But that to me was an odd moment where, okay, if you're a man of the people, then why vote against the people on that one? I don't really understand that. And I would like to be able to ask him that question of why he did that.
Well, he's not the first one who's done that. Aaron O'Toole just recently did that. The Conservative convention on a few items, a big one being climate change. They voted, no, we're not going to attack this. Or this is not the most pressing issue in Canada, is not the climate change thing to bring it up. They voted against that. And the next day he got up and said, I know that they said we aren't, but I am, and this is who I am, and too bad. And like, what? It's like, what is happening to the Conservative Party? Back to Pierre and back to Scott Hayward. They recently sent out an email this morning saying, here's our 6 Conservative candidates for the Conservative leadership, and here's our ranked ballots as far as being pro-life to pro-choice. Leslyn Lewis was number 1, being pro-life, and then Pierre, who just came out and said, I'm very much pro-choice. This is the best. This is the state of our Conservative Party, people. Not only do we need to vote, we need hold on one sec here.
Yeah.
This is what happens when, because they just blocked 3 pro-life candidates from being even in the leadership. I don't want to get into this today. I'm going to touch base with this next week. And they knew that it would just help even a pro-life movement, or Leslyn probably gain votes. We'll explain that later. But if and when this all falls apart, and if the Conservative Party really is a rotten oak tree that comes down, we need revival. And maybe this is an awakening to us. Like, what have we stood for? Have we voted? Have we been asleep? Hey, pastors, we're losing all of our rights as Christians. Our Bible's going to be hate speech. Those who even stand for life will be demonized. Like, we need God. As much as I appreciate, yes, let's get our leaders, let's get our membership, and we need to vote. We need to do that. So it doesn't cost very much if you're not a member of the Conservative Party and you got limited time. But I'm telling you, this is prophetically, I'm saying this is a wake-up call for the nation, is it not, Faytene?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think I think we're probably a few rounds around the wake-up call mountain, actually, by this point. Hey, I do want to say something though about the ranked ballot. I was surprised that Right Now actually did put out a ranked ballot like that. You were actually the one who told me when we got on here. But I do want to say that sometimes people will ask, what's the value of ranking your whole ballot or just putting your favorite choice and not putting anyone else? There's 2 reasons or 2 ideologies. One is the ideology that says fill your ballot to block the worst person. Okay. So, for example, if you don't, I don't know who they put at the bottom of the bucket. If you want
Jean
to block,
Charest, I think.
Oh, okay. So if you really want to block Jean Charest, for example, then there's one school of thought that would say, okay, well then definitely put Leslyn 1, put somebody 2, put somebody 3, put somebody 4, put somebody 5, and then that will block the one that you definitely don't want to get on. The other school of thought is this. Let's say hypothetically there were 100,000 voters. Like, they're expecting 400,000 members in this race. So if that's true, statistically, probably 300,000 will vote. Let's say out of the 300,000, 100,000 put Leslyn 1 and leave the rest of the ballot blank. Then what happens is, if Leslyn drops off, when she drops off, 100,000 votes disappear. That just sent a massive message to the Conservative Party of Canada that they just lost all those people, either to another party or just to the mass of Canadians that won't vote because they don't believe that their vote makes a difference. So not ranking your whole ballot has the potential, if it's done as a voter block, it actually has the potential to send a very, very massive message to the party. And I think at that point, if Leslyn doesn't win this, at that point, this is just my prophetic sense, would love to hear what you think. At that point, I think there's a major vote split on the right. I don't think the Conservatives have any chance of winning with a bigger vote split on the right. And the oak tree probably starts to come down quite swiftly at that point. The Conservatives desperately need a leader that cannot just unite the party, but can unite the right, who can bring back the Maxes and the Derek Sloans and the Grant Abrams and the Josephs
Right.
and unite the right. It really, otherwise we just continue to have 5 parties on the left, no checks and balances in Parliament. And in all honesty, you're going to have a whole group of Canadians that are just disillusioned and are going to vote for smaller parties. So the only option for the Conservative Party is to elect somebody that is a full spectrum conservative, I think, if they want to survive.
So are you saying you're running for prime minister sometime soon? Is that what
Would you be my campaign manager, Art?
I would be your biggest voice. I would.
Oh my gosh, Art. Yeah. Well, yeah, we should start a party. The Art and Faytene shake it up. We'll call it the Shake It Up Party. What you gonna do? Okay. Anyway, we'll talk about this type of stuff probably at some point in October, right?
Yeah.
When we know where we're at. So
Yep. Well,
anyway, so bottom line, get your
yeah.
membership. I had this feisty little lady in New Brunswick, Art. She came up to me after the meeting and she said, Faytene, I'm just going to tell all my friends, is your nation worth $15? I was like, Heather, you need to put that on a t-shirt. So, this is the bottom line. It's very low investment. It's only $15. It's only a few minutes, particularly if you use one of the voters guide. If you sign up through our website, formycanada.ca, we will hold your hand the whole way across this whole journey. We'll let you know when the ballots are coming. We'll just be there as a customer service team, pray for our team. And so it's only $15. It's only a few minutes. And this is what I'm saying in my presentation, Art, is really right now we have 2 choices. We can either just surrender our nation to the same trajectory and just let things continue in the same direction without checks and balances, or we can take a $15 chance on change. I'm not promising change. I don't know. I don't have a word on what the outcome of this is, but I do believe that no matter what happens, if Faytene signs up 50,000 people to vote in the Conservative leadership race, then, no matter what happens, they're going to have to deal with what we care about. They're going to have to deal with us. Obviously I'm hoping for a great outcome on this. But right now, the call of the Spirit, I believe, is use the power that's in your hand. James chapter 4 says this, that if you have the power to do good and you don't do it, the Bible actually calls that sin. And so this is a moment where we actually have the power to do something for the sake of the future of our nation. I'm not making any prophetic promises here, but I do believe that when good people show up, we can have a really good impact, possibly a good outcome, and minimally a good impact on the culture of what's happening in this sector in our nation. So don't have anything to lose but $15 in a few minutes. You're going to spend that driving your truck from your driveway to the end of your street anyway, right? So you might as well take that $15 and also put it in this direction. Just saying.
Well, before we go here, I know that you got to head to the airport soon. Remember, this is Prophetic Perspectives with Art Lucier and friends, and me and Faytene are here. As I said at the beginning of the program, 3 years ago, basically right around now, we were all together, for a lot of us, for Battle for Canada, Edmonton, where the Lord said very clearly to me, those who stand for life will be protected as the children of God were in Goshen. I believe, I saw, and I did see, and I see judgments coming down, darkness. The word was, I didn't know what it would look like, but a darkness was coming in 2020. We got locked down March 2020. We couldn't even do our last Battle for Canada. A light sprung up in the darkness. We started the Canadian firewall, 24/7 prayer. I just got a message from Jonathan. 2,700 different emails were on our firewall last week. You guys are praying. There's a family. There's something, and we're standing for life. But with this, we must stand for life. This is not, oh, well, we don't have a choice or a chance. We got no chance. Les has no chance. A couple years ago, me and Faytene prophetically spoke. I said, we must vote for Leslyn. There was 4, remember? There was 4 people. There was Leslyn, Derek, Peter McKay, and Aaron O'Toole. And we said, we must vote for Leslyn. At that time, she didn't make it. Me and you
but
have
not by
had
much. But not by much. It
no.
was only
That's
57
right.
votes in 149 ridings. She was very, very close. Very, very
Yeah,
close.
it was very close. Many Christians at that time came up to me. Oh, I heard your spiel on Leslie Lewis and about communism coming. Oh, but I just decided to vote for Peter MacKay or Aaron O'Toole instead. I'm like, why are you talking to me? Why are you even talking to me? It's like, it's like, you didn't hear me? Yeah, you heard me, but you didn't. And just like, so listen, we must vote for life. God
Yeah.
is watching. And maybe Faytene, now we've got 6 candidates, only one being pro-life. Maybe God just like, I'm going to make it easy. I'm going to make it easy for you guys. It's like, here, these guys don't vote for life. This one does. Here, what's the difference? Make it easy. And I'm telling you, if you can hear our voice, I believe that the Lord is watching what we do here. So with that,
Absolutely.
tell us one more time how to go get a membership and whatever.
Sure. I got one more thought in my spirit. Do you mind if I just zoot it out here? Is that okay?
Go ahead.
I think it's important for some reason, I think it's important to highlight that we were right. In 2019, when the Lord gave us that word about the swing ridings, he gave us the word with a warning. And the word was that people of faith, the church need to mobilize into swing ridings. And if they don't, a bill will pass that will lead to the criminalization of the word and the imprisonment of pastors. That came to pass. I feel the same weight with this word, that people of faith, people with strong values will determine who the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada is, either by our engagement or by our absence, because we're offended, because we're busy, because we're distracted, because we don't want to spend $15, whatever the reason is. People of faith will determine, I prophesy this, people of faith will determine the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. The next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada will determine who the next prime minister is, because it's a game of dominoes. What happens here is going to impact what happens there. And the next prime minister of Canada will determine whether or not Canada is served up on a silver platter to global interests, or whether we have someone that stands up and says, listen, Canadians are smart. They know how to run their own lives. They know how to manage their own businesses, their own families, and their own churches. We're either going to have somebody that serves us up on a silver platter to a bunch of things that none of us would appreciate at this point, or we're going to have somebody that stands up for Canadians and is a disruptor. And I feel this quite strongly, and I'm willing to go on record saying this. I'm also willing to be wrong. But I said this last night at Kevin's church, I'm willing to be wrong, but I'm not willing to be right and not say this now when we actually still have a window. The window is very small, though, Art. People need to hear this. The window is very small. We only have 7 days to sign up, to vote. Share this with your friends. We have no idea what the tipping point is. We do know that Leslyn just needed 57 more votes and 149 ridings last time. We were so close to that tipping point. We don't know how close we are right now. Let people in Quebec know about this. Let people in the urban centers, any of your friends that live in a city, and just anybody who cares about these things, you can reach people. If you're watching this right now, you will reach people that I won't, that Art won't, in the next 7 days. But if every single one of us uses our influence, if we use this trust that's been given to us called influence, those who've been given a trust must be found faithful. If we use this trust that's been given to us called influence, I believe that we can have an incredible outcome. So the website is formycanada.ca. Just go to formycanada.ca. That will register you with us so that you get that voter's guide that we're going to be putting out, and then it will kick you over into the Conservative Party site. They'll ask for your information and your $15, and you'll be done. They will not give you a confirmation of your membership because they're so backlogged right now. Immediately, you won't get it. So just watch your credit card. If you have a $15 charge on your credit card, or if you sign up for 2 years, it might be a $25 charge. If you see that charge on your card, that means that you are an active member and you just need to wait for your ballot in July. And if you don't get it, we will help you fight for it, because we know how to fight for ballots by this point in the game. So that's what's on my heart, Art. Thank you so much. I got to catch a flight. I'm going to be in Victoria tonight, Regina Sunday, Montreal after that, and probably on Facebook a whole lot.
Fantastic. Well,
Love you guys.
love
Appreciate
you
you, Art.
too. All right, so I'm going to let you go. I'm going to close off with a few comments. Safe journey to
Sure.
Victoria, and we're hitting the road next week. Okay,
Yeah.
and we'll
Thank
see you somewhere out there, Faytene. All right,
Yeah.
blessings.
And, if people want to find out the address for the tour stops, just go to formycanada.ca. It's also there. Thank you, Art. Hugs to Heather in Gimli.
You betcha. All right. Whew. Love my redhead fireball friend, Faytene. It is important. Now, listen, for a lot of us who say, what's the use? It's all rotten. I'm going to say, yeah, but that's not the point here. It's seemingly impossible. Like with the conservatives, what they're doing, how they just blocked 3 conservative candidates, true conservatives. They couldn't afford them to come in. And then the voting point system end up, when they get knocked out, giving all their votes to Leslin. Couldn't afford that. I'll explain that next week with Grant Abraham. It doesn't matter. We must vote, and we must vote for life. God is watching. God is watching to see if we're going to do all that we can do. And that's just my word to you. There is darkness here, but we need to do what. And with that, some people say, I'm just so tired of politics. Okay, fine. I still suggest you just do this. Just get in there, and this is someone who stands for life. Stand with Leslin Lewis for life, even if there's no chance. I'll close with this story. 2 Chronicles 20. It seemed like there was no chance. Israel was such a small little army with a massive army of over 100,000 warriors just at the gate, just about to kill Israel. And Jehoshaphat jumped up and says, listen, believe in the Lord, you'll be established. But believe his prophets, you shall prosper. And so that was in 2020. Believe his prophets, you shall prosper. In 2022, 2 Chronicles 2022, it says the prophet said, in verse 20, in 2021, send out the worshipers first, not the warriors, not the archers. Send out the worshipers, those who stand and exalt Jesus. In 2022, it says, as they began to praise the Lord, God sent ambushes against the enemy. We need revival. We need more than Leslin Lewis could do against a corrupt machine. So I hope this was informative to you. I hope this brings some understanding. Yes, I cut up my donor card online a year ago on the Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson show, because Aaron O'Toole was not a man of God. He voted against life. I don't even know. His track record was very clear. And in good conscience, as men and women of God, we could not vote for that. We can't anymore. We will not plug our nose just because someone is promising us a job. Remember what I said at the beginning. Without God and the blessings of the Lord, there is no job. So I hope this has been good. I hope that you've tracked a bit. I hope you didn't check out just because we talked about politics. On the contrary, the ecclesia, the Church of Canada, is supposed to write the laws. So with that being said, welcome. I hope you've enjoyed this another edition of Eagle Eye Prophetic Perspectives with Art Lucier and Faytene. Remember, the sovereign Lord does nothing without first revealing his secrets to his servants, the prophets. That's Amos 3:7. And God really is talking. Are you listening? Okay, thank you. And we'll see you next week with another edition of Eagle Eye. God bless you guys.